do so.
No, I can share. That would be fine. So let's get this rolling. Welcome to admin today on Thursday, July 18th. Annie, would you be so kind as to do roll call?
Absolutely. Online, it looks like we have Adrian Beck, Andrew Chorney, Cheryl Hartman, Christina Dewar, David Strohmeyer, Eric Dixon, Lana McLarty, Irene. Irene, may I get your last name for roll call, please? You are muted if you're trying to talk. All right, I'm going to move on. MCAT and Shane Stack. And 206, we have Commissioner Vero and Commissioner Slotnick, Ann Hughes, Cheryl Ziegler, Annie Coffey, Carrie Powers, Brian West, Allison France, Jackson Lee, John Stegmeyer. It's been a while, John. Yeah. Karen Hughes, Jamie Bowman, Mel Fisher, Under Sheriff Randy Arnold, and Micah Grimmett.
It looks like maybe we added Deb Clark and Nicole Rush online.
All right, Deb Clark and Nicole Rush. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good job, Annie. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll roll right into the consent agenda. We have 3 items. Anything that anyone would like to pull off to discuss there, or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'm happy to move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion or public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh,
sorry, Dave, just an FYI, number 2 will be sent via DocuSign to you. So they just asked me to mention that.
has it already been sent to me and is buried from days ago, or
I
is
hope
it yet?
not.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, there's been a chronic problem with these things showing up out of sync with when we actually take action on these. So I will keep my eyes peeled.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Action items. We have a bunch today, and we will begin with Jackson Lee, Mountain Bike Missoula.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. For your consideration today is a memorandum of agreement with Mountain Bike Missoula for trail construction and maintenance activities at Marshall Mountain Park. There is a long history of community involvement and partnership in the management of the trail system at MMP. Mountain Bike Missoula, a local nonprofit, has designed and built the majority of this existing system and has provided maintenance of those trails for almost a decade. Through this partnership, there is mutual interest and opportunity in enhancing site accessibility and continuing development of a more approachable, sustainable trail system. The maintenance of existing trails and near-term trail priorities outlined within this agreement are consistent with the vision and management guidelines set out in the Marshall Mountain Park Conceptual Master Plan. And this agreement recreational trails program.
Yeah, you cut out there for a little bit, Jackson. I can hear you now.
Okay, back now.
Yeah.
I'll go back one paragraph. The maintenance of existing trails and near-term trail priorities outlined within this agreement are consistent with the vision and management guidelines of the Marshall Mountain Park Conceptual Master Plan. And this agreement includes an immediate opportunity for new trail construction due to $100,000 of funding secured through the Recreational Trail Program by Mountain Bike Missoula and local match committed by the county of up to $70,000. And that local match is being sourced from the open space bond funding designated to near-term site and recreation access and safety improvements by the city and the county during the acquisition phase of Marshall Mountain Park. This early phase trail development provides more equitable public use and supports beginner and youth programming that is currently hosted at MMP. All types of recreation users will benefit from increased dispersal of visitors at the site through these expanded trail options. This partnership between Missoula County and Mountain Bike Missoula, with continued support from the City of Missoula, Friends of Marshall Mountain, and numerous other community partners, is an important step for the mountain as it recognizes a legacy of grassroots stewardship and demonstrates commitment towards involving citizen groups in development and maintenance activities going forward. We want to extend a special thanks to Mountain Bike Missoula for their efforts in bringing forward an exciting project in the first year of public ownership. and also to the Friends of Marshall Mountain for their continued momentum that they bring towards turning the community vision of Marshall Mountain Park into reality. I'm now going to turn it over to John Stegmeyer with MTV Missoula to highlight the early phase project details.
Thanks, Jackson. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Dave.
Thanks for coming. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's super exciting to be here. This, what we're saying and what truly is, this is an awesome, really progressive rec opportunity, which we've talked about at length in many other meetings. But now we're out on the ground. Now the grant funding's coming in, and now we're actually building new trail, which, you know, seems on the surface simple and easy, but we know from our land management partners that the idea of actually creating new recreation access is just not that easy and not that commonly done anymore, especially on Forest Service. Marshall has that opportunity, and we're really seizing on it now. This is just incredible progress to get the $100,000 from the state recreational trails program, and then having match in place locally allows us to start on this master plan and get some real headway as far as some trails that won't be, I would say, categorically easy, but easier than what's there to get them out. So don't worry, you'll still be challenged.
When me and Dick are liking, if it's not hard, we're not. It's double that's
And we want the kids to grow. But Jackson and I, a couple of weeks ago, we went out, we walked around the site and thought, okay, you know, we want young kids to have programs where they can come out here and have an opportunity. We will see that if you look at your visual. Number one, the base area connection should provide a entry point for people walking with their kids on bikes. That's going to be the easiest trail. And then from there, as you all know from being on the site many times, there just isn't much flat ground. We're going to take advantage of it where we can with number one, with that loop. And then after that, it's about getting people up to the top with a reasonably graded trail. And that's number two.
So there will be a easier way up than there is now.
Yes, yeah, you'll still start, if you
Still gotta go up.
There's really no way around it. We looked and we thought, you know, what can we do aside from, you know, there isn't much. It's a steep hill. It's a steep site. So you'll start on the road for a bit, and then we'll get people onto this trail that will ideally be at an average 7 or 6% grade.
Okay.
So yeah. It should
And
be good.
when would construction start?
Likely first week of August. We've
Great.
got our contractor selected. We're working we're preparing for stage 2 fire restrictions and how we're going to navigate that with them.
What would that look like?
I think it will be early mornings for
Okay.
them. Yeah. So there'll be one guy we have is a local contractor. He's done a lot of the work, a lot of the trail building out there. He used to work for Mountain Bike Missoula. He's now on his own. So he's local and he's familiar with stage 2 fire restrictions. And it sounds like from talking to the other contractor that working in our region and having field season be half fire season, they know that fire restrictions are the norm. And he just said, talked to him yesterday, we'll be getting up early and starting early, cut the machines at 1 p.m. and then move on to handwork and planning and design and recovery in the late afternoon. So
is
it
it,
shouldn't shut us down.
what is the schedule for going from start to finish?
So our hope is that they will be done by the end of field season, construction season, which would probably in most years, it's about Halloween up there. Depending on what happens with weather, it could be earlier or maybe later, but we typically look to late October as it's too wet, unsafe, too cold. So hopefully they're done by then. They will be fixed bid contracts. They should be incentivized to work efficiently. If not, then they may, if the fire, who knows what happens with further restrictions or whatnot, we may end up having to extend into the spring of next year. Yeah,
Sure.
So we're accounting for that. These are significant projects as far as putting in recreational trails. These are pretty good size and fairly complex. So they will, we want them to do a good job and take their time. And if that means they need to spend some of May or early June next year, that's okay. Yeah.
Great. I like that it'll be uphill.
For bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And number
Thanks.
3 on this project diagram of the scope is a beginner-friendly downhill trail for mountain bikes, but it also has adaptive-friendly components. So John and Mountain Bike Missoula, as well as the other project partners, have been working with Missoula Adaptive Recreation and Sports to try to broaden accessibility up at the mountain and to include access for individuals with adaptive rec sports equipment up there. So
Are there any other adaptive mountain bike opportunities in the county?
Not that are built to a design.
Right, right.
You
So
know,
this
there's
is all-
certainly
yeah.
people that are, actually I take that back. So Five Valleys did a project in Miller Creek
Oh, yeah.
up the Park Creek drainage. And that affords a small amount of, accessibly designed, some universal design to get through. But there really isn't much, as far as actually going out and doing a trail that has fun features, that this will be the first of its kind. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I think that we saw that being recognized by the reviewers in the grant applications. This is an opportunity, and we're certainly seeing that from our adaptive rec partners at Mars. Yeah,
So who has seen the moose?
I have not.
I have not either. Nor have I seen photos.
Jackson, you
Marshall
haven't-
Mountain Moose.
There's a Marshall Mountain
It's
Moose.
elusive as Bigfoot. There's no photos.
Oh, I totally thought Jackson would have known where it's at.
Moose should be named Bigfoot.
So any other questions from folks on this item? Okay,
No, I-
seeing
Really
none, is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the MOA with Mountain Bike Missoula.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
I really-
Jackson. Thanks, John.
Super Like to see this
And
happening.
we really appreciate the support of the commission.
Bet we're in.
Innovative recreation development. It's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as the easier way up is there, we can do it. Three of us will bike up it. You could lead us.
That's on record.
Yeah. I would do, if it was available, I'd go now.
We noticed that.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Moving on, Flana, we have an amended agreement with the Montana Department of Transportation.
Hi. And it's my item that is going to get emailed for DocuSign. So it has not been sent out yet, so it's not buried in your inboxes, but it will be on its way after this meeting for all 3 commissioners to sign.
Excellent.
Yes, so I have an amendment to an agreement with the Department of Transportation for federal funding for a new sidewalk along the western side of the fairgrounds. The amendment has 2 corrections and 1 update. So under the funding for the project cost estimate, 2 numbers were incorrectly entered on the original agreement. So those have been updated to reflect the accurate amounts. However, the totals were accurate in the original agreement and have not changed at all. And then the other update is just the contact information. Initially, it was Emily Brock, and now it's been updated to me. So those are the only changes to this agreement.
Thanks. Questions?
When would construction start on this?
So we are looking to submit an RFP in the next couple weeks to contract a design firm. And that will probably take about a year. And so construction is slated to start in 2026.
Great. Thanks. Well, I would move that the board approve the amendment to funding construction maintenance and local agency guidelines agreement with NPT.
Second.
Further discussion or public comment on this item? Okay, let's cement the agreement. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thanks, Flana.
Thank you.
Next, Eric or Shane, talk to us about a pulverizer. to the tune of
morning,
about
yes.
$500,000.
I know,
Yes.
like, they're so cheap.
Yeah, we don't like to spend money, but when we do, we spend big. So, well, and this is actually a piece of equipment that we wanted and needed for a long time. For many years, there were a couple contractors in town, Knife River being one of those, but then there's also a private individual that had a version of a pulverizer that we would hire them to pulverize our asphalt roads. And it makes it a lot easier to pulverize an asphalt road in place rather than haul off the the existing asphalt and have to dispose of it. So we can pulverize that material in place, use it as a base material for fresh asphalt. Makes things faster, easier, definitely more efficient, but also we can use this piece of equipment for gravel roads. We actually just used it this spring to apply a test material on Roller Coaster Road as a dust abatement product. And as you see there in that photo, that blue hose that connects from the water truck directly to the pulverizer, we can inject our material and it mixes in the drum while it's processing that material in place. So you get a good mix of that material to bind either the gravel or the asphalt. The other options that we have are a surface application of an asphalt rejuvenator or a dust abatement product. With this, we can get a little more penetration and get a good mix of product in the top 4, 5, 6, 8 inches, however deep we can or need to go. So it's definitely a better process. And we had the opportunity to purchase the private contractor's pulverizer. He was basically retiring, and he had a 40-year-old piece of equipment that he wanted to sell us for $350,000. It was a pretty sweet deal that we had to pass on, so we opted to go out for bids for a new machine, and we got a bid from RDO for this machine. We got a bid from CAT that was a little more expensive, but they are historically better for service, especially with their dealership here in town. So we talked with a few counties in Montana and Idaho that had a CAT and a Wirtgen. The common idea was that the Wirtgen is a better machine for what we wanted to use it for. So not only being cheaper, it was also a better performer from what we found. So we had ordered this several months ago, and back in March, I believe it was, we had come to the commissioners for an agreement to rent this piece of equipment for May and June, and then complete the purchase in July. And it didn't get here in time for that option, so the purchase price that we have now is the full purchase price with no rental credit for 2 months applied. So it's here, it's working, it's everything we hoped it would be. So we would recommend that the purchase agreement be signed.
And the maintenance happens here at RDO, or how does that work?
Yes, actually, RDO was very aware of the support that RDO was providing. And Wirtgen is working with them as their distributor, so they are kind of bending over backwards to make sure that RDO can get back to a supplier for Missoula County equipment. So they do have a distributor here in town, and they have support from Great Falls. So we're pretty comfortable with the maintenance that we'll get from them now.
Thanks, Eric. Other questions? Okay. How about a motion?
I move that that the chair sign the retail purchase order for the Wirtgen pulverizer.
I'll second that.
Further discussion or public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Hey,
All right,
Thank you.
let's go pulverize some stuff. Very good.
yeah.
Can't
And
wait to
how
see
long,
it in
will we
action.
get 40 years out of this thing? How long will it last?
I don't know about 40, definitely 20. I mean, we're not going to use it as heavily as a contractor would. I mean, we could do, 10 or 15 or 20 miles a year if we had time and money to do all the projects that we'd like to do. So it'll be well cared for and lightly used relative to what it can do.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Next, Cheryl, we have an amendment to the agreement between Mask and the Missoula County Detention Facility.
Yes, good morning. So I'm requesting the board approve an amendment to the agreement between the Montana DOC and MCDF. As you know, we had an agreement with the Department of Corrections that expired June 30th, 2024. This amendment allows for a brief, short extension while the DOC continues to move inmates out of our facility, and also captures some changes in per diem in accordance with that settlement agreement from 2021. So we'll get payment back for the per diem that they were underpaying. It does capture 2 years of it and then sets a new rate for the 2-month extension on the agreement.
Fantastic. Will they pay, when will we receive the money from the back pay?
I think the settlement agreement says within 30 days they will pay.
They've been very prompt.
They've been prompt.
Like all 2 years will be paid in 30 days?
I believe that don't quote me on that, I'll check, but yes, they've been very prompt in payment, so we should have that quickly.
Once executed, we'll give them notice that we're ready for payment for the past few years. And then this does capture basically a 2-month extension where they're going to pay our actual costs. That won't happen until the conclusion of the agreement in September.
Okay. And what, I'm sorry,
Bill
how
them
much?
monthly, so they tend to be, we do bill them monthly on that so they'll get board bill for July, in the first part of August. It generally takes them 30 days post that to pay.
And we
so.
changed their per diem rate is what now?
It's the actual rate that was set by the commission at the beginning of the year, so 125.
125, okay.
Fantastic. Thanks for negotiating on this.
Mhm.
All right, I would move that we approve the amendment to the agreement between Mask and the detention facility.
Second.
Further discussion or public comment on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Cheryl, for
Yeah.
all your.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl.
Appreciate the support.
Adrian, an emergency proclamation for wildland fire season.
Good morning, commissioners. Apologize for no camera. I'm actually down here in Lolo this morning on my phone. But what you have before you is kind of a pretty standard emergency proclamation asking you to declare a state of emergency in Missoula County for wildfire danger and potential wildfire impacts. Pen and ink change to the resolution there. We are now in extreme fire danger as of yesterday. Our energy release components of the fuels in Missoula County indicate that we are in extreme fire danger as of yesterday, which essentially means that any new fire that starts has the potential to grow big very, very quickly and overwhelm our local resources capacity to bring that fire under control. And so what we're asking is that you kind of formally declare that state of emergency does exist. And what that does is that frees up our emergency operations plan to be used to its full capacity by delegating authority to incident commanders for evacuation decisions, as well as controlling ingress and egress primarily. But it also kind of sets us into a posture that if we did have a large scale fire, we would kind of already have that green light to amass resources and request assistance from the state and or the federal government by way of FEMA.
Thanks, Adrian. Questions?
So in the language here, it says stage 2 fire restrictions on all private land in Missoula County. What would some of those?
That's the next agenda item.
We got to do this
Do
first,
this one
right?
first.
Okay. Let's not be a hindrance. So, yes, we want to adopt the 2024 proclamation, emergency proclamation. Or that's what I'm motioning, sorry.
I'll second that.
Further discussion or public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now to stage 2 fire restrictions.
You bet. So this is a little less common. We normally sign an emergency proclamation at least once a year for either fires or floods. But stage 2 restrictions are a unique extra tool that we deploy when necessary to help to help the fire situation really, and to reduce as many human-caused fires as we possibly can. As we look across the landscape, not only in Missoula County, but across the state, most of the fires that are causing problems for the state and local government are human-caused fires. And so stage 2 restrictions is something that we do in collaboration both with our federal partners and state and adjoining counties. We meet pretty frequently, kind of in the lead up to fire season. We have a collective fire restrictions and closures guide that tells us when and where it's appropriate to apply restrictions. Typically, these occur in a stage 1 and then a stage 2. Over the years, stage 1 restrictions have been very problematic for local jurisdictions in that stage 1 restrictions typically just restrict campfires, but then there's a whole list of exemptions that are really confusing to the public and really hard for us to accurately message on where and when campfires are allowed. And so collaboratively over the years, we have determined that stage 2 restrictions collectively, both for the forest and the state, as well as local government, make the most sense. And certainly the conditions that we find ourselves in today warrant going to stage 2 fire restrictions. Why we have the county sign on to this is so that we can address private property within the county. The federal restrictions apply to federal land, the state restrictions apply to state land and to private forested land, but this is a way to kind of make it blanket across the entire county so that there is no confusion as to where restrictions do apply and where they don't.
Adrian, for those folks who are not aware of what stage 2 restrictions entail, could you please articulate what is prohibited now?
You bet. So I'll read straight from the resolution that you would sign, but the following activities are restricted. So building, maintaining, attending, or using fire or a campfire, smoking except within an enclosed vehicle or building, a developed recreation site, or while stopped in an area at least 3 feet in diameter that is barren or cleared of all flammable material. The following acts are prohibited from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. Operating any internal combustion engine off designated roads, welding or operating acetylene or other torch with an open flame, or using an explosive. A 1-hour foot patrol is required following the cessation of these activities. So operating motorized, so the next categorized, next activity that is restricted is operating motorized vehicles off designated roads and trails, except for persons engaged in official business, including the functions of governmental agencies and the activities of utilities, cooperatives, and telecommunications providers to operate, construct, repair, and maintain utility facilities that are essential to the public. Fire extinguishers and fire tools are required during such operations. And then over the years, we have listed about 9 exemptions to that, which really try to hone in on those activities that could still be done, but the conditions with which they can be done.
Great, thanks.
I will also note that because the city, when you read through, municipalities are not typically in these blanket restrictions, and so the city lands and the city of Missoula is actually also exempt from the county's stage 2 restrictions. But in conversations over the years with the city, generally most of these activities are not allowed anyway as far as campfires go, but they will likely impose their own restrictions to be in alignment.
Thanks. Questions?
Yeah, we were having a discussion earlier about fireworks. Can you guys clarify that? So can someone set off fireworks at 10 a.m. out in the county? They just can't do that after 1 p.m.?
Great question.
I will give you my opinion, but certainly would welcome Brian to chime in that I think you could probably categorize fireworks as an explosive, but MCA does have some very specific language around explosives and fireworks.
In case use situation, obviously from the county, don't light fireworks right now. It's hot. Fires are at high risk, just not the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that, I mean, really, the capacity to enforce all of these things, there are some penalties that are outlined in the restriction resolution that could be applied, but this really is a way to convey the risk to the public and to hopefully change some behavior.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
Should we
right,
do this?
I would, do you have, sorry, Dave.
Nope, go ahead.
I would move the board approve emergency proclamation to impose stage 2 fire restrictions on all private land in Missoula County.
Second.
Further discussion or public comment on this? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so ends our action items. We have 2 pieces of correspondence. Is there someone out there who wants to speak to the Swan Valley Community Council letter?
Hi, this is Karen Hughes with Planning Development Sustainability. Oh, thank you. That's what I was looking for. So, as you know, we've been working with the Swan, planners in our office have been working with the Swan on a community planning process. And also at the same time, there's been some members of the Swan community who's expressed some interest in exploring the possibility of separation of the Swan Valley or some portion of Swan Valley from Missoula County. And so last week, I think it was last week, week before, last week, the commission sent a letter to the members of the Swan Valley Community Council, sent this letter. Letting them know that you've been hearing about the planning process, and also letting them know that they, if members of the community are interested in this idea of separation, that's something that really needs to come from the community members. That so far the interest that the commissioner's office has been helping is the expressed interest to work on community planning, and that the Swan Valley Community Council should talk with their community members about this idea and see the extent to which they want to pursue it. And if they do, they should let the commission know. So essentially, that's the basic gist of the letter. Yeah.
It's just adding it
Thanks.
on an agenda to make sure that we let folks know that this letter was signed and sent last week.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any questions on that?
Just gonna read it really quickly.
Are you reading the letter we signed, Josh?
Yes.
Just reading the letter you signed, which is probably hard to track from where you sit.
Thank you. That's great.
Couldn't have said it better ourselves. So let's see, moving on. We've got another letter. Nicole Rush, are you out there? Do you want to speak to this item?
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. This is a letter to the Montana Department of Commerce requesting another contract extension on one of our Big Sky Trust Fund grants. This one is for DJNA.
Okay, any questions on this? I take that as a no. Well,
we're doing this. Great. Thanks for keeping this going, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. We'll get it signed and taken care of.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed all the other items that preceded this one. Thanks for
I
joining
always
us.
find them very interesting, actually. So yes.
Okay. That ends our correspondence. We are back into the budget season mode here. So we have a couple of budget enhancement request presentations, which we will roll through. And it looks like we're beginning with Public Works Mechanic Road Department. Who's handling this?
Yeah, I guess I'll lead it off, Dave.
Okay.
So we had a mechanic position approved last winter, spring. I think this just memorializes that position, I think, in the budget. The cost associated with additional individual or mechanic is ranging probably from $105,000 to $115,000, depending on the certifications of the mechanic at the time. But that includes all the benefits and everything. So we would essentially cover that cost with reduction obviously in other areas of our budget. So that's probably things like less material, maybe for roads, less funding towards equipment. But we do need an additional mechanic. The additional mechanic would be beneficial right now during the summer months as we're using heavy equipment pretty regularly. But even more so, I think in the wintertime is where we really experience a lot of backups with plowing and seems like the cold weather really takes a toll on our equipment. And there are a lot of times when we're down quite a few plows in the wintertime. And the more mechanics we have, the more we're able to keep up on repair of those needed items. We do currently have 6 mechanics, 1 mechanic up in Sealy Lake area, and then we've got 5 down in the Missoula area. And one of those mechanics is really focused on like passenger type vehicles and primarily focused on the sheriff's department vehicles. So we do say we've got 6 mechanics now, but really, truth be told, we have more like 5 mechanics. So I do have Eric and Shane Quick on the line. Shane Quick's our fleet manager and shop manager. So I don't know, Eric or Shane, if you guys want to add anything.
Hey, before we move on to Eric or Shane Stack, so just to be clear, this is not something that would require additional tax revenue beyond what's currently in the budget, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, I'd love to get more, Dave. That's one of the things we're wondering too, is like, we just finished up union negotiations, and there's going to be a significant cost of just all our staff in general with the increase there. What we've been told in the last few years is those pay increases are supposed to come from somewhere, and typically they weren't supposed to come out of our budget. And over time, they were coming out of our budget, and that meant that we were reducing acquisition of equipment. We were reducing materials. And I think that's the direction we continue to head, Dave, unless you guys have other ways to fund the department.
Okay, so this would be coming with a request to levy additional dollars to cover it.
Of course, yeah, and
okay.
But you guys, if you're unable to, obviously, we'd still like to have that position, and we'll fund it through the means like I mentioned. We'll have to cut costs elsewhere.
Okay, Eric or Shane?
Yeah, sure. I'll start before I let Shane finish. But we just wanted to, Shane mentioned that we have essentially 5 mechanics, but I want to cut that number down a little more. Clarify that one of those mechanics is also our welder. So he really does not do traditional mechanic work. I mean, he's obviously got to work on the same pieces of equipment, but in a different manner. And then our 4th mechanic down here in Missoula is really just working on the sheriff's department vehicles, even though theoretically he's supposed to be at about an 80-20 split. So we essentially have no one for most of the public works fleet light duty vehicles. So that leaves us with really 3 mechanics to work on the heavy equipment, which Shane and I were just tallying that up before we started here. We've got between Missoula and Sealy about 125 pieces of equipment. That goes from dump trucks to dozers to trailers, loaders, excavators, all those things that we have 3 guys really to work on. So, if you have someone scheduled for a vacation, 2 people scheduled for a vacation, someone calls in sick, whatever the case is, we run into all those scenarios where all of a sudden we have 1 mechanic on hand, and we have, a paving operation with 15 guys and 15 pieces of equipment, and we just don't have that backup, that redundancy that we need. So I'll let Shane carry on with more of his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on, Eric. It just seems to be much tougher and tougher to keep up or even try to get ahead of the season and prep for the next season. And it does take a toll on our operations when we have too much equipment down. And that seems to be happening more and more often. Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah, I really have 3 guys that do the bulk of the heavy trucks and heavy equipment. And with the numbers, with 120 in total, including trailers and all the other attachments, plows, sanders, it is extremely difficult. And to stay ahead and provide good service for the operation end, I strongly do feel the need for additional help.
Thanks. Questions? Josh, I can't tell, is Juanita gone?
Yeah, she had to run to the doctor, but I don't have any questions. This is all pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to our second budget enhancement request. This comes from Central Services, Print Shop Printers. Anyone
That's
here
me.
to? Okay.
Yeah.
And I've got Jamie here with me for backup. She's our print shop technician and expert. So this request is for in the basement. Jamie and her print shop has 2 really large industrial printers that were purchased or leased in 2019. A 5-year lease with an option to extend for 1 year. So they have reached the end of their lease life and they're reaching the end of their functional life. What Jamie tells me is that the life expectancy is about 5 years for these machines. They're past that 5 years and 4 million cycles, and they're at a combined 4.75 million cycles. So they're at their end. The consequence of not getting a new lease for new machines would be they're going to suffer in their quality and increased maintenance requirements. So the cost we anticipate would be about $6,000 a year to lease 2 new machines. We'd put out an RFP, we'd competitively find the new machines. And then we have in our base budget about $6,000 for maintenance. So that maintenance is already in there. So what we're requesting is permission to RFP for new machines to lease them for probably a 5-year lease. And I've got handouts that Jamie put together if you're interested in what she does, what kind of things she's
The
printing.
case would be stronger if it was printed badly.
Sure.
Can't even read this.
And Dave, we can email this list to you as well. Jamie's biggest customers down there are the detention center, health, and PHC. She also does work for the city that they pay us for.
So what are we paying now per year?
Right now, we're paying $500 per machine per month. So about 6, yeah.
So
comparable to what we would be paying in the future, but that lease is coming to its end.
That's interesting. That hasn't really gone up.
Right.
So I guess my question is why would this not, since we're basically talking the same amount, why would this not just be in the base budget rather than being treated as an enhancement?
I think because the lease is up.
Because it was a 5-year.
It was a 5-year deal with an option to extend for 1 year.
Okay.
That's a great question, Dave.
Yeah, I don't see, even if it's a lease, I don't see why we would just not bake this into our base budget if there's basically no budget impact. So that would be my preference, is just to treat it that way, unless there's a good argument to do otherwise.
That works for me.
Yeah, it's done.
I'm just glad that you said $6,000, and when you said 4.5 million, I was thinking that's one expensive printer.
They're really good printers.
It's also a pulverizer.
Yeah. I can say that research showed that they would be about $14 million to $14,000 to buy a new machine. I have millions in my head now.
14,000 to buy.
Right, each, and so we'd need 2, so that'd be a $20,000 spend.
And they have the same life expectancy. It's cheaper to lease.
Yep.
Well, FYI.
Yeah. Okay, good to
You've seen
know.
the RFP in the contract.
Yep, we'll get to work on it.
All right, thanks, Mel. Anything else that we need to discuss today? Okay. Well, sorry I couldn't be with you today. COVID is still a real thing out there, folks. So Make sure you're up to date on your vaccinations for what it's worth. Okay, we'll be done.
Thank you.
All right, goodbye.